considered the defense counsel's request for a further summation examination of the jury. So, we left off last time, like, at a to be continued or a place where it prompts you to save in the middle of a trial. The first trial segment of this case, which I do not know how many, like, investigations and trial segments there's going to be. So far, in the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, unlike the original Ace Attorney trilogy, there hasn't been any of that. There's only been at most one trial per case, or one investigation per case. This fourth case is the first case in which there's an investigation and a trial. So I don't know, so that makes me doubt whether or not there's going to be multiple segments of investigation, multiple segments of trial. So the precedent for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is not to ever have that, but the precedent from the mainline Ace Attorney games is to have that. I think it's going to happen. Now, again, the questions are, who did it? How did they do it? What reasoning are we going to go through to figure out who did it and how they did it? And the last one, why they did it. So, who did it? My guess, if I were to guess somebody, would be the Shakespearean actor guy. Just because there tends to be a pattern in Ace Attorney where just like the guy you just happened to run into in the first investigation segment that doesn't seem to have any relevance to anything. You just happen to run into him and he says some lines. Tends to be the person who did it. It's just kind of a pattern. It's a something I notice, right? So that's why I would think it would be him. How did he do it? I don't know. I mean, you would have to somehow in a very short period of time get the book, A Lion's Pride, from Mr. What's-His-Face. I have the people here. Yeah, Mr. Garadeb's, like, accommodations, and get that down into the street. And it's how get a knife into the back of the victim. And get that down basically. So it's, and I don't really I haven't seen any potential mechanism by which to do either of those things and not be noticed by Mr. Garadeb or Mrs. Garadeb. So how is still like I still don't really have any idea. I haven't figured out anything out as to the how. What reasoning we're going to go through to figure out that he did it and how he did it? Well, this is Ace Attorney, which means this question is like impossible to answer almost usually. It's like no way in the world are you going to be able to answer this. Already, the way we've gotten this far in the trial is make up things that are not true about how the accused, Soseki, could have gone home a different route than he obviously went home. We made up this BS that made no sense in order just to prolong the trial. The reason why it makes no sense is because the books that Soseki bought were found around the victim. So he had to have dropped his books around the victim. He obviously went by and saw the victim herself fall and not the juror with the same, who wears a green coat and looks has a similar physique. Like he had to have seen the actual victim. So it would just like in hindsight we could say that we made a fool of ourselves, essentially. But things like that happen in Ace Attorney, where you come up with something that you couldn't have thought up in the investigation because you presented this extra evidence mid-trial, and then you use this extra evidence to come up with something that's not even true. It just kind of prolongs the trial so that you have time to get more extra random evidence to come down the true path and find the solution. So it's like really difficult to actually, or essentially impossible to figure out what the reasoning is going to be. Why he did it? Also no clue. Okay. And I have determined that the court must uphold the defense's judicial right to this procedure. I guess you could do them over and over again. I guess the only way the trial could end then is for the defense to fail a summation examination and the jury just continue to hold their positions. So, counsel, you will now proceed with your second summation examination. I presume the jury is ready, Mr. Foreman. We are, my lord, ready to go home. We're sick of this stuff. I mean, if I were on this jury, I know that the plot of this has to go like, against all odds, you persevere and you show that the defendant is innocent. But honestly, at this point, if I were on this jury, I would be pretty convinced that this guy actually did the crime at this point. Okay. Very good. In that case, I must ask each of you now to state clearly and concisely for the court. I mean, the situation wouldn't happen in the real world, but if it did, he would be totally guilty. The grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of this crime. The accused left behind evidence at the scene, didn't he? Those 3 books of his. That is correct. If there were some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider. That's also correct. We need this alternative explanation as to how he was stabbed. But we don't have it. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to this crime if the window was closed, can it? Yes, the window, we presume, was closed because it was really cold, so she wouldn't be throwing books out the window. Dearie me, it was only a little book. Hardly life-threatening, even with a direct hit. So she was throwing books, okay, but the window was closed. Look, I just want to get this over with. If I don't bring home some pay tonight, I'll be in a tidy bit of trouble. Well, I can't really work with that. Come to think of it, we had a fire at home a while ago. It gave me the sneezes. Stanley has considerably more tangible arguments for all members of the jury this time around, it seems. With one notable exception, of course. My learned student friend was unable to find fault in the previous witness testimony. So the court must accept the fact that it was indeed the accused seen fleeing from the scene. Well, everybody admits that. And moreover, even the accused does. No one else was even at the scene to commit the crime. Again, there could have been there has to be a mechanism. Well, if the eyewitnesses are correct, it would seem as if the conclusion is somewhat set in stone. Yeah, because Van Zykes isn't really wrong or a bad dude, it seems, so far in this game. I fail to see how it can be argued any other way. That means, I'm afraid, that during the summation examination, it is essential that you establish some other tangible explanation for the facts. And it'd be completely wrong all over again. What would even constitute a tangible explanation here? By the precedent of this game, anything would. Isn't it obvious? Who stabbed the woman and how? Those 2 details are all you need to provide. Simply give a name and a method by which the attack was conducted. And there I was thinking, this might be hard. But Mr. Naruhodo, you have to do it, otherwise this really will be where the trial ends. No pressure then. It's like a whole sovereignty of God thing, where it's like, we know for absolute certainty that you will win this trial, Ryonosuke. What is there to worry about? I presume you are prepared, counsel. Yes, my lord. Alright, Ryonosuke, focus your mind now. Clearly, the key to the summation examination is going to be juror number 4, the maid. Or should I say, Mrs. Garadeb. We have a book that disappeared from the Garadeb's house on the evening of the incident, and the 4th book found in the victim's hand. There must be a way to link the 2. Yes, that is what we have to find. Using every technique I've learned in my short career so far, whatever it takes. Don't forget to keep an eye on Mrs. Garadeb and how she reacts even to the things other people say. We're gonna have to do a lot of pressing in this as well, unfortunately. Yeah, I gotta press this, but this is pretty airtight. But we know now there were 4 books, not 3. Well, what difference does it make? The 3 books that he had were there. There's every possibility that the fourth book in fact belongs to the defendant's landlord. Yes, that's the part I have a problem with. Sorry? Well, at the point the woman was stabbed, this landlord fellow was at home, wasn't he? Enjoying a fiery scrap with his wife or something, you said. That's not exactly how I put it, no. Well, anyway, the point is, the fellow and his wife were somewhere else when it happened. I think that's what you call a strong alibi. So it couldn't have been the landlord who did it, which only leaves the Japanese fellow. Honestly, I can't see what all this Havler's about. It's a done deal, isn't it? I suppose it is, since I have nothing witty to say. If there was some novel alternative explanation about how the victim was stabbed, I might reconsider it. We need this, but I don't know about pressing this woman on it, so you might be willing to change your decision, you mean? Oh my, such delight in your face, but I'm afraid I shan't be swayed by emotion. Despite what you may think of me, I am a very modern, metropolitan, and rational woman. That's great. If one reads the morning papers, it's all forgotten by tea time, isn't it? So why read them in the first place? You see, modern, metropolitan, and rational thinking, wouldn't you say? And not at all extreme. As I see it, an overwhelmingly suspicious Japanese man has been implicated over overwhelmingly strong testimony. So despite one or two minor puzzlements, I do declare that the man is overwhelmingly guilty. Modern, metropolitan, and rational logic, wouldn't you say? Overwhelmingly, and you care about things that don't matter. But us modern gals are always delighted to embrace new fads, you know. And I'm only too happy to consider an exciting new theory if you could come up with one. I'd be happy to do that too, if only I could. Let's do our very best to not disappoint the modern and metropolitan young lady. Right. I'm glad you omitted rational there. Even if the woman was throwing books, it can't be related to the crime if the window was closed, can it? And this is going to be a slide over, I presume. But what about the possibility that the window was open? What about it? I mean, there's just no way it could have been. How can you be so sure? The prosecutor fellow over there said it earlier, didn't he? Winters in London are no joke. You don't want to invite that sort of cold indoors. So no, that window wasn't open. Us Londoners like sitting by the fire and staying warm, see? But you couldn't categorically state that the window wasn't open, could you? It just wasn't. They wouldn't have opened it. Then what's the point of even having a windows, huh? Counsel, would you kindly refrain from childish bickering? Oh, sorry. Somehow I need to show there's an undeniable possibility that the window was open. You see, not only can air go through a window, Rinosuke, but photons can too. Because this young man isn't going to budge otherwise. Dearie me, it was only a little book, hardly life-threatening even with a direct hit. Hold it! But the little book was on fire at the time, was it not? With flames of love, I have you know. There's really no such thing as a loving incendiary bomb. Well, he brought it upon himself. It's playing with fire to betray a fiery love. Isn't it? Well, don't you agree? Well, any kind of betrayal is certainly a bad thing, yes? But I think the argument might have arisen out of your misunderstanding, Mrs. Garrett. Never you mind that. The point is we were just having a jovial little dispute, nothing more. And I won't have any more of these suggestions that it was anything whatsoever to do with this crime. Right, well, we'll see about that. But what about juror number 5? He doesn't seem to be turning a hair at Mr. Garrett's relentless onslaughts. It's almost as though he's used to it. What a gentle soul he is. You just want to get this over with? How can you sit there and say something like that? A man's future is at stake here. Well, him and me both then, like I said before. What? I told you already, I'm a day laborer, aren't I? If I don't bring home readies with me tonight, you'll find me floating face down in the Thames tomorrow morning. What? You heard me. My missus isn't one to mess about, you know. She can be fierce, believe you me. Another shining example of marital bliss, then. A situation like this cropped up the other day. It was, well, You know, it's funny, but I can't quite remember. Sorry? It was too frightening, that's the thing. I must have blocked it out. Helpful. I wonder if Mr. Beat would ever be dragged into the Thames by his scarf. Don't ever go there, Miss Susato. There must be some way to jog his memory about this.
Hold it!
Does that have anything to do with your decision about the defendant's culpability in this case? Sorry, what's that? You'll have to speak up, lad. Could you tell us more about that fire? It was last winter. My grandchildren baked me a lovely cake on my birthday. I had 75 candles on top. It did. It had, okay. What a sight to behold it was. You put candles on a cake? Oh, was it some kind of devil worship? Of course not. It was an angel cake to celebrate my birthday, obviously. It seems that a common custom here in Great Britain, Mr. Naruhodo. Anyway, I mustered all my puff to blow them out. Only I must have blown wrong somehow. The flames didn't go out, but candles went flying all over the room. The furniture caught and everything went up. The whole place filled with smoke. Definitely sounds like devil worship to me. And by the sneezes, I presume you mean a cold? How did you catch a cold from a fire? What a fiasco it was. My grandchildren, bless them, they threw water over me as they tried to put out the flames. And then because the whole room was filled up with smoke, of course, we had to open all the windows to clear it. The windows. The biting winter air rushed over me like the devil dancing on my grave, it did. I caught a terrible cold from it. It put me in the hospital for a while. I don't forget that birthday in a hurry. I knew it was devil worship all along. But something about this old man's stories playing on my mind for some reason. We need to demonstrate who, apart from Mr. Natsume, could have attacked the young woman on the street, as well as he or she could have done it. Yes, but once again, the jurors' statements are full of personal prejudice. A lot of them seem convinced they're right, even in the face of logical arguments to the contrary. Like what? I think you're going to need to pit them against each other to force them to accept adultery, yes. Alright, I'll see what I can do. If anything stands out, I'll go in for a strike. That's the spirit. Okay.
Objection!
These two jurors' statements clearly contradict one another. They do? How exactly, counsel? Don't point at me again. I told you it wasn't me. What's that you say? Speak up, lad. Speak up. Juror number 3, do you see? Oh, me? See what, sir? Did you hear juror number 6's account of his birthday celebrations last year? It seems, despite being a Londoner, he once opened his windows in the middle of winter. Well, yes, of course, because it was an emergency. I mean, obviously, if the room was filled with smoke from a fire, then you'd be mad not to open. Oh. Exactly. On the day in question, at the time of the incident, there's a fire in the Garrett household. It's like by coincidence, juror number 6, like the juror on the far right, just happens to like have these experiences that are relevant. And Mr. Garrett had the following to say about it. The whole place filled with smoke.
Oh my.
Oh, my hat.
Excuse me.
Juror number 4, do you have something to say about that? Mr. Garrett, Mrs. Garrett. Oh dear me. What is the meaning of this? How dare you imply that I'm hiding who I really am? It's imperative that you confirm something for the court. So please, it's time to drop the pretense now. What is it? When the fire started in your house that day, did you or your husband open the window? Well, I beg your pardon. What are you insinuating? The room would have been thick with smoke after the carpet and bookcase caught fire as they did. In a situation like that, it's inconceivable that you wouldn't have opened the window. And what if I did? Or what if we did? Oh, alright then. Yes, you're right. My husband was frantically trying to open the window. Which can't have been easy since I continue to give him a justly deserved book battering. Even though your house was on fire? No, you never stop throwing until the anger subsides. It would be terrible bad for the nerves to do otherwise. Of course, I should have realized. That's a significant step forward, Mr. Naruhodo. You've managed to establish that the window was open. Oh, we simply must have that added to Mrs. Garrodeb's formal statement. Now that you mentioned it, yes, the window was open at the time. I'd clean forgotten, but it's true. Okay.
Hold it!
The point when the victim was attacked on Briar Road. We know there was a small house fire in the Garrodeb house on the opposite side of the street. Well, yes, it certainly seems that way. And on account of the smoke, I imagine they would have had the windows wide open in spite of the cold. We also know that Mrs. Garrodeb was throwing flaming books at her husband. Her husband, who was backed into a corner by the window due to his wife's frenzied attack. Yes, that's right. So there's definitely a chance that one of the books could have flown past the man out the window. Only what? Only I can't really see how it could have gone all the way over to the other side of the road, that's all. So I don't really see how it can change my decision, really. Oh, I see. That wasn't enough. What is it going to take to persuade these people?
Hold it!
The fourth book found at the scene of the crime shows very obvious signs of fire damage. And the title of the book, The Lion's Pride. The same title, in fact, as the book that Mr. Garrodeb told us he had been reading. Well, I really couldn't say. On the day in question, did you or did you not throw at your husband the copy of The Lion's Pride that he had been reading? I did. It was the first thing I could lay my hands on, so I hurled it straight at him. And now I've come to mention it, yes. He was rather enjoying reading it, you're right. Why did you not reveal this information to the court from the outset? Because I couldn't, you insolent little man, I didn't remember. At times like this, you pick up and throw whatever you can lay your hands on as well, you know. I really don't.
Oh boy.
It's plain control. I barely noticed I was throwing a book, much less the title of it.
Excuse me.
What is it, juror number 5? You know something? I've remembered what it was, the theory I'd blocked out. Yeah, I was listening to what this granny was saying, brought it all flooding back. Who you're calling granny, you cheeky devil? I'm Mrs. Garadeb, or the maid, I'll have you know. The man doesn't even flinch. Please tell me that's not because he's so used to being hit all the time. It was about 2 weeks ago now. I just go back home after work, like. I put my hand in my pocket for the wages I just earned that day, and I nearly died. There was a hole. Every last penny had dropped out. Oh dear, what a disaster. You hadn't heard the half of it, boy. Oh? So he got pickpocketed by Gina. The wife was cutting up some chicken at the time. I couldn't hardly get the words out, but I told her straight, I've lost the day's wages, love. Next thing I knew, the blade was whistling past my ear, stuck into the wall next to me. It did, about an inch deep. No words, just terror. I couldn't smell it then, you know. That god-awful stench of the Thames. I was sure I was going to end up face down in the muddy banks that night, I can tell you. Now, that's a real disaster, isn't it? I'll never use the word lightly again. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this. When women lose their rag, they'll throw anything at you. Knives, hatchets, hammers, you name it. Mr. Naruhodo, you mustn't think that all women are so short-tempered and unrefined. No, I wasn't thinking that. Throwing household objects at people as well, it's so uncivilized. So, as an alternative, I just throw the people directly. At least attack with honor. Use a bow, or the like. Using a bow? What, attack? Who are you going to attack? Never mind. Anyway, this man's words could be rather significant, I think. Alright, we'll come back to the bow and arrow thing later, if I dare. I'm gonna press this first. I think what you do is you actually pit this on juror number 2, but... Your wife really threw a kitchen knife at you? That's right. She was chopping meat with it. Had a tidy edge on it, believe me. Still, it's all memories, isn't it? It started with that smile she threw me when we were courting. Since then, the list of things she's thrown at me has grown along with our relationship. There was a cup, then a glass, then a pot, a kettle, a chair, a wardrobe, a cooker, a bathtub. Their wife must be even beefier than you. Things came to a head last week when she threw me right into the Thames. Still, she's not bad when she's calmed down. She's a little sweetheart, really. I'm so happy for you. If you want to know what I think this whole idea of ladies first that we're so obsessed with in this country has thought up some clever lads who've been tossed in the Thames a few too many times by their wives. Was thought up, oh. That's a very interesting theory. What a terrible thought. On the face of it, this juror's statement just sounds like a really extreme antidote. But I think it might turn out to be extremely powerful weapon. A weapon I might be able to use. Weapon, ha ha ha. To make the jurors accept an alternative explanation here. Yeah, that's a hint, alternative explanation. So that's how we know. Alternative explanation.
Objection!
These two statements clearly have a deeply significant connection. Good grief, you mean they don't contradict each other? Explain, counsel, at once. Juror number 2, do you think, perhaps, that this could be one novel alternative? Oh my, whatever do you mean? An alternative explanation to how the victim was stabbed in the back. What are you talking about? You demonstrated that the 4th book, The Lion's Pride, that was found at the scene of the crime, originated in Mr. Garadeb's room on the top floor of his house. Therefore, it's equally possible that some other object besides the book could have found its way from the Garadeb household to the street below. What's that now? After all, Mrs. Garadeb could have thrown any number of different objects at her husband. Isn't that right, juror number 4? What are you insinuating now, you little beanpole? I'm beginning to think that you've ever since the true origins of this book came to light. Perhaps she's had a feeling this might be what happened. I seriously doubt. I'm like almost certain that the answer is not. Mrs. Garadeb threw a knife out the window and it happened to lodge itself in the victim's back. Now you listen here, you Eastern Gala. As the foreman of this jury, I demand a straight answer. You give us this yarn about some other object making its way out of the house, but what is it? I'm really taking a big gamble here. Yes, you're going to just make up something that's wrong again just to prolong the trial. That was a bold accusation to make, but I haven't had any real evidence. To back it up. Yeah, but I'm certain that at the very least this warrants further investigation. All right, Mr. Foreman, I'll try to explain the defense's theory. The other object that was found its way from the Garadeb household to the scene of the crime was the knife.
Take that!
Juror number 4, Mrs. Garadeb. Well, what now? I must apologize in advance for this. I need you to confirm something else for the court. This knife. Have you ever seen this kind of knife? Has you ever seen this knife before? Good Lord, counsel. What on earth are you doing? That's the weapon that was lodged into the victim's back, man. My lord, remember that when the victim was attacked, Mr. and Mrs. Garadeb were in the throes of an argument. Mrs. Garadeb was hurling anything she could at her husband, who'd been backed up against a window that had been opened to clear the smoke, and through which a book sailed to land at the crime scene. You can't seriously believe that the book was found in the victim's grasp. Believe that the book was found in the victim's grasp. Yes, you have to catch it. Are you saying that it flew out the window and across the street to land neatly in her hand? Huh, even my missus hasn't got a name like that. Yes, I admit, there are many details we don't yet understand. But that's the point. That's precisely why we must not allow this trial to end, not right now. Oh my. Mrs. Garadeb, your answer, please. Have you seen this knife before or not? Dud. You could have just lied, my lord. I wish you changed my decision. I am a woman of my word, after all. Thank you, madame. Yes, I agree. I certainly didn't see this coming, but I just don't think it would be right for this trial to come to an end now with so many unanswered questions. Mr. Foreman? I have to agree. Not that I think the granny did it, mind. Yes, you know what? I'm not quite happy about this at the moment either. Altogether, yeah, ladies and gents. The old man just sits there. We did it? No! You just prolonged the trial. You didn't finish the trial. Congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. So, as a result of the defense's summation examination, a number of jurors' leanings have changed. 2 jurors all called guilty against 4 now calling innocent. Accordingly, the opinion of this court is divided, and this trial will continue. Now then, Lord Van Zykes, how does the prosecution wish to proceed? This trial is rapidly descending into a farce. Like a corked wine, the first few sips are bitter enough. What follows is so repugnant, it's good for nothing, save the gutter. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, the defense has just put forward a credible alternative explanation for what happened. Credible? Is that your considered opinion, Mr. Foreman? The defense's argument is a joke, to which I barely know how to respond. But let me start by insisting that you must all familiarize yourself better with the relative positions of those places being discussed. What do you mean by that? What's his angle this time? It should already be more than apparent that between the crime scene and the Garrett household was a rather wide street, Briar Road. Which means that the distance from the Garrett house to the scene is some, yes, I'm yawning, 15 yards. Let me see, 15 yards. That's around 14 meters. 14 meters? Oh, that's a little farther than I imagined. You were there, Ryan-asuke. And as you ladies and gentlemen of the jury rightly noted as having portentous significance, the 4th book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, the smoldering book, wantonly hurled by the lady of the house, traveled some 15 yards to land on the opposite side of the road, neatly between the collapsed victim's fingers and thumb. I mean, she could have caught it. Is that your final conclusion, my learned and deluded friend? And did that jackknife follow a near identical trajectory to plunge into the middle of the victim's back? This fantasy is somewhat stretching the notion of having a bad day for the victim, I think. Even those pathetic serialized detective stories have more believable plots. You read those, Van Zykes? There's nothing I can say to that. That prosecutor loves the sound of his own voice. Mr. Sato, serialized detective stories are pathetic, are they? How dare he? Maybe let's pick our battles here. My lord, might I be allowed to speak? As judicial assistants, you may speak for the defense. Yes, go ahead. The prosecution may consider the idea fantasy, but what the defense has postulated was believable enough to persuade the jury to change its leaning. And as such, the court has a duty to explore this alternative explanation as thoroughly as possible. To that end, juror number 4, Miss Joanne Garrett, must be called to testify and submit to cross-examination. Saints alive! Cross-examination of a juror. Order! 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 Well then, this is highly irregular. It is unprecedented for a member of the jury to be summoned to the witness stand. And unnecessary. Lord Van Zykes. There are already witnesses in the stand whose testimony the defense may further cross-examine. If my learned friend's farcical theory has any truth to it, then both a burning book and a jackknife must have flown through the sky before this couple's eyes. And we must assume that they would be able to testify accordingly. Was it too foggy for that? What do you say, witnesses? Yes, sir. Constable Royal Beat reporting for duty, sir. Well? Good morning, officer. Sorry for dozing until now, sir. I haven't slept for a month on account of a villain who's appeared on my beat, sir. Oh, they are so heroic, these London hobbies. Patricia, my darling, I've been neglecting you, but no more. Oh, really, my hero, you make me swoon. So he got his nap in. Very well, I hereby reject the defense's request. They said nothing, oh. And order the witnesses in the stand to testify again. Stay forthwith before the court. Details pertaining to the defense's alternative explanation of events. Yes, sir. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett, and believe me, a London Bobby is worth his word. You see, sir, the windows on the top floor of the Garrett's house are top-hinged casements. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, he would have seen it. I leave the scene to go and fetch help. My trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir. Of course you did. You fell asleep, sir. Well, this is quite startling. Top-hinged casement windows. That detail was not in the police report, Constable. Ah, yes, I'm sorry about that. I must have been a little drowsy. Ahem. You cannot excuse your sins with drowsiness every time, Constable. No, sir. Sorry, but... what exactly is a top-hinged casement window? And you... you cannot excuse your ignorance with such trite remarks, my learned friend. Of course, sorry. I found it, Mr. Naruhodo. Cast your mind back to the windows in Mr. and Mrs. Garrett's room. Alright, I'll try. So the window opens in order to allow air to circulate inside the house. As it's a top-hinged casement window, it swings open along the upper edge, you see. Well, that would still be easier to throw out of than if it was hinged along the, lower edge. I'm glad you've rectified your ignorance. A casement window's most prominent feature is its stay, a metal bar which prevents the window from being opened beyond a certain amount. Prevents its opening? This is all news to me. Absolutely correct, sir. In other words, if a book or knife were to have been thrown through the open window, it would have clattered against the pane and fallen straight down to the pavement below. No. You see, the problem then... good. Your education in windows is complete. There's never any possibility either the book or the knife traveling 15 yards over the road. That is, unless the window pane had been shattered. Something we've discounted already. That can't be. You're just wrong, Ryonosuke. Did you see that, Rolly? That young Japanese man just collapsed in agony. Oh yes, my darling, I saw it. I saw how he crumbled before me. Oh, Rolly, you're so strong. How is this happening? I haven't even started the cross-examination yet, and already my argument's been destroyed. Counsel, if you could drag yourself upright again, the court awaits your cross-examination. Lord. Oh no. Oh good, another desperate situation. This case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Garrett. Believe me, London Bobby is good for his word. Well, I'll press it just because, but there's nothing in this one. How can you say that for certain? A very good question, sir. And the answer is this. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. Well, you don't have to follow. You didn't necessarily follow your rules. He showed us that before, didn't he? Did he? I can't say I remember. To patrol the streets of London, the town, and uphold the peace of the common man. It's what the job's all about. And that's just why I can't stand here today besides my long-suffering wife and tell you a Bobby's good for his word. Oh. While rubbing my tired eyes, admittedly. Sir. Rolly, you're so manly. Of course I am, my darling Patricia. This is what I meant. How can you say for certain that this case has nothing to do with Mr. and Mrs. Gerardeb? Oh, I see, sir. You should have said it so earlier, sir. Yes, well, so could you answer the question? That was a waste of time, then. Absolutely, sir. I'll answer it to the fullest of my ability, sir. There is a surprising reason why Mr. and Mrs. Gerardeb's domestic dispute can't be related to this case. But before I get into that, sir, just one thing. Yes? I am very much like you and all your countrymen to understand the Great British institution of Scotland Yard. So I hope you will take back some of the tales of us London bobbies and how we uphold our guiding principles. I wasn't planning on going back just yet. I've only just arrived here. So that inside, I'd be happy to lend you my warrant card for your perusal. But I must warn you, you won't be able to get through it without shedding a few tears. Thank you, I'll try. Well, that's a circuitous way of getting this. Gotta look at it now. Guess we're gonna use it. At some point. Policeman will strive to preserve the peace with his allotted beat. Within his allotted beat. A patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day for the furtherance of community relations. Any crimes fall under the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. When a crime is discovered on a beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigations and help detectives. On his beat, okay.
Hold it!
By which you mean they don't open fully, is that correct? Yes, sir. They're just there to allow a bit of air through the house, you see. They're restricted to how much they opened. And therefore anything thrown out of the window from the inside of the room would simply strike the pane and fall to the street directly below. For clarity, allow me to mark the map. Here is the location where objects would have fallen. Yes, directly opposite the scene of the crime, on the other side of the rather wide road. Would it have been so hard for somebody to mention this top-inch casement thing before? Well, I have another question for you, Constable. And what would that be, sir? How do you even know? Why would you have any idea what sort of windows Mr. and Mrs. Gerardeb's house is furnished with? Ah, well, sir, that's very simple. You see, I helped with the investigation yesterday.
Excuse me!
You have something to add, Mrs. Beat? Sorry, You look, well, delighted. Is there some particular reason for that? Oh, I was just remembering, that's all. We really were so lucky. Lucky? What do you mean? Well, of course I feel terrible for the poor woman who was attacked. Don't misunderstand me, please. But we were just so lucky it didn't happen on Rolly's beat. It was so close, you see. Oh, I hadn't realized. Oh yes, that's straight, Briar Road. That's the boundary between Rolly's beat and the next one. Isn't that right, my love? Constable Beat. Oh yes, that's right. That's the reason I was helping out with interviewing the occupants of the Gerardeb household yesterday. Their house is on my beat, you see, so... that really was cutting it close then. Constable, I wonder if you could clarify something. If the Gerardeb household is on your beat, does that mean that the pavement next to it is as well? Outside Mr. Gerardeb's house? Yes, ma'am. The pavement on that side of the road is part of my beat. I see. I was unaware of that. Just think, if the woman had been attacked just on the other side of Briar Road, we would never have been able to go for that meal or to celebrate our wedding anniversary. But that's the life of a Bobby, after all. Extraordinary people are Bobbies, tirelessly working for the benefit of all Londoners. Well, did it happen, like, before you, after you ate dinner? Like, you know what I think? I think it was the good Lord's way of rewarding my Rolly for all his hard work. Don't you think so, my darling? That must be it, Pep. Okay, whatever. I think perhaps we should make sure we have that information officially on record. Leave it to me, Mr. Naruhodo. I'll take care of it immediately. The pavement where the victim was found lies just outside of Constable Beat's beat, the border of which runs down the middle of Briar Road. And now it's my turn, I think. Obviously, if anything had been thrown out of the window, we would have seen it.
Hold it!
According to my notes here, the sun had gone down already and it was dark. Albert Rolly and I were strolling along, gazing at the night sky and looking for a lucky star. Sorry. The star that will guide us to eternal happiness. Can't it guide you to answer the question? If a flaming book had cut across the sky in front of us, it would have lit up like a shooting star. And if I'd seen a shooting star, I would have made a wish upon it. Let Rolly be an inspector, I would have said, 3 times at least. Of course, that's what's with the smog and everything. We couldn't actually see any stars. Short, you're trying to say that neither a book nor a knife crossed the sky before you? Yes, sir, that is correct, sir. As sure as the night sky in London is starless, sir. It certainly seems like they're telling the truth. And then we saw the poor woman fall to the ground, so we ran straight over to help her. I did leave the scene and go fetch help, but my trusty Rolly was there to make sure nothing was disturbed.
Hold it!
Yes, you said that you went to a nearby police box to fetch another officer, is that right? That's right, yes. It had been on Rolly's beat, I would have known exactly where I was going, of course, if it had. Don't feel bad, my love. You can't be expected to know the location of every police box on every beat. So Rolly told me the way, only I sort of got a little lost on the way. Patricia, my darling, that is why I love you. Your terrible sense of direction is bewitching me. Oh, please. So I suppose I was gone for about 15 minutes. Like I said, my Rolly was at the scene the whole time, making sure nothing was disturbed. I was off duty at the time, of course, but my true Bobby is never really off duty, sir. Oh, a true Bobby. I didn't take my eye off the crime scene for one moment, sir. Nothing strange to report on that front, sir.
Hold it!
Nothing to report? That's correct, sir. I had my eyes wide open the entire time, never looked any way for a second. No one else approached the scene and nothing was removed from it. I can swear to that on the yard's honor, sir. Really? That seems a little strange. Beg your pardon, sir? Strange, sir. Seems altogether regular to me. This burnt copy of the Lion's Pride was originally in the Garrett household. So the question remains, how did it find its way into the hand of the victim? Can you shed any light on that, seeing as you were at the scene of the crime the entire time? Couldn't it be a different copy, sir? One that just happened to be burnt as well? Even if that were possible, why would the victim have been gripping a book like that in her hand? As you can see from this photographic print, she had a bag over her shoulder. Well, sir, that book was in the lady's hand from the moment we arrived at the scene. Is that so? There's something about this statement that's not sitting right with me. The two mysteries of how that knife ended up in her back and how the book ended up in her hand. There must be some common thread between them. Can I ask you something, please, Mr. Loyas? Yes, of course. What is it? You're doubting us, aren't you? I can tell. Well, I wasn't really. I mean, what's she doing? Please, just because I'm a woman, it doesn't make my testimony less valuable. You might just see me as a wife of a policeman, but I'm a woman of my word, I am. I really don't remember ever suggesting that I doubted you. No excuses. I don't want to hear it. My voice will be heard. My lord, you'll let me speak, won't you? Yes, Miss Speed. I will allow you to supplement your testimony if you desire. Sometimes the path of least resistance is the sage one. That was a very loud mutter. I heard that. That Japanese man thinks a policeman's wife's word counts for nothing, does he? Well, watch out, sir. I might let you get away with something like that, but my Rolly won't. Duly noted, Mrs. Beat. Please, I humbly ask you to continue. What could she possibly be about to say, I wonder? I know what they say, my eyes never let me down. My sense of direction is a little off sometimes, though.
Hold it!
Mrs. B, nobody is questioning what you've told us. I saw it, I did, that evening, I saw it clearly. That little Eastern man with the whiskers and the funny curved back, slinking away from the scene. And I know what I didn't see, as well. I didn't see any flaming books or knives flying through the sky. Oh, very clear. You also mentioned something about having a poor sense of direction. Oh yes, well, that's a little embarrassing, really. I'm always ending up in the wrong place when I've made arrangements to meet Rolly. He gets ever so cross.
Excuse me.
Constable Beat, is there a problem? No, sir, no problem, sir. Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind, perhaps? Oh, well, in a way, sir. Yes, sir. I was just remembering that the same thing happened that evening is all. You mean Miss Beat lost her way on the night of the incident? Well, you see, I sent her off to find a police box in the next beat over from mine. But she was gone a fair bit longer than what I was expecting. I thought she'd be back inside 10 minutes, but my darling had gone a good 15. Oh, Rolly, you're such a tease. But the reason I was so long was because of the bouquet, silly. The bouquet? Sorry, what bouquet are you talking about? Oh, it was a present for our wedding anniversary. Rolly's so romantic. He saved up for it with farthings and halfpennies he found in the gutter while doing his rounds. Yes, how romantic. I'd forgotten all about it until just now. Had you, my darling? Oh yes. But that was just between us. Not talking about it to anyone else, darling. You have to promise. Really? Oh. What was that all about? Constable Beat looked very obviously troubled during that exchange. I'm afraid I can't offer any useful insights, Mr. Naruhodo. I can. You press it because you're going to figure out that they actually did not watch the scene the whole time. But I'm quite sure of one thing. We have to ask Mr. Beat about the bouquet. Mrs. Beat, this bouquet you just mentioned, I'd like you to add details about it to your testimony, please. Oh, really? Yes, I'd love to. Ominous Van Zyke ellipses. What happened was I dropped my bouquet and ended up losing my way for a while. I didn't take my eyes off the crime scene for one moment. Nothing too strange to report on that front, sir. Okay, we gotta go back.
Hold it!
You mean you dropped the bouquet at the scene of the crime? Yes, that's right. I was so upset. When we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her... Then we ran over and saw it was a woman with a knife in her back. I was so shocked I dropped the bouquet Rolly gave me. It was in a dark spot where the streetlights weren't casting any light, so I didn't notice it first. And then you went to the police box to report to the police whose beat it was on? Yes, and I came back to the scene together with the other constable, you see. That's when I spotted my bouquet again, but the funny thing was, when I went to pick it up, it was nowhere near the victim's body at all. In case you need reminding, Mrs. Beat, the victim is not deceased. I was all flustered for a moment before I heard a voice calling me from the other side of the road. Your husband, presumably? That's right, silly me, I'd gone over to the wrong side of the street. Although, I'm going to blame the bouquet this time. I can't think of how it got there, I really can't. So the bouquet somehow moved from one side of the Briar Road to the opposite. It's like, the Briar Road was picked up and turned around 180 degrees and set back down. Curious indeed. Isn't it? But the worst of it is I forgot to pick the bouquet up again when we left the scene. That beautiful rose Rolly bought me, with that change from the gutter you spent so long collecting. My bouquet. Do you perhaps mean this sorry solitary rose? Oh. Yes, that's it. That's the bouquet Rolly bought me for our anniversary, with old bits of change he found in the gutter. Maybe just call it a rose. Tell us, Lord Van Zykes, where did you come up what kind of flower? According to the report by the police officer in charge of the crime scene investigating, it was found on the edge of the pavement in front of the Garrett household. In front of the Garrett house, so where we would expect it to be based on Mrs. B's testimony. Okay, that makes sense. Although it wasn't noticed until the morning as it lay there on the street lamps as the street lamps cast no light. It was believed to be of no relevance to the case since it was found on the opposite side of the thoroughfare. Oh, thank you, sir, thank you. Now may I have it back now, please? No, I think for good measure this rose should be added to the court record as evidence. Oh. The anniversary bouquet has been entered into the court record. It's a symbol of our love. I want it back after the trial, do you hear me? I want it back. Good grief. Rest assured that I shall do my very best not to forget, Mrs. Beat.
Hold it!
No, I think I... Okay. Accidentally pressed the wrong thing. Okay. Oh, this is new because the turnaround. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, what do you make of this? Yes, the whole idea of an invisible attacker has been troubling me all along. The fourth book that had no business being at the scene of the crime made me sure that Mrs. Garrett was hiding something from us. But it's becoming increasingly clear that someone else had been hiding something from us as well. I think I may already be armed with everything I need to strike a decisive blow here. This time, I'm going to expose the whole truth about this mysterious affair. Okay, let's look through court record. Map. List of books. Pavement where the victim was found lies just outside Constable B. Okay. He said Rolly Beat was the reporting officer. Just outside Constable Beat's beat, the border of which runs down the middle of Briar Road. Knife. Already examined it. I didn't find anything interesting. Photo. Policeman will strive to preserve the peace within his allotted beat. Okay, nothing strange there. Patrolling officer is expected to walk 20 miles around his beat every day for the forensic community relations. Nothing weird there. If any crimes fall into the jurisdiction of the beat in which they are discovered. Okay. It was discovered in Rolly's beat, though, so. When a crime is discovered on his beat, a policeman must assist with initial investigation and help detectives. Okay, but it apparently was not on Constable's beat. Examining this guy. An English rose. It's such a beautiful flower. This is a rose, is it? I never seen one before. Do you not take an interest in flowers, Mr. Naruhodo? I wouldn't say that exactly, but I do know 3 types at least. Gosh, 3? Yes, plum blossom, peach blossom, and cherry blossom. Perhaps you should consider branching out, owning some that aren't fruit tree based, for example. Oh. Say anything about the newspaper rack. That's probably not it. That's correct. Yeah, but the street lamp was dark. Like, if something was thrown out the window, you wouldn't have seen it because it would have fallen straight down into a place where there was no light. So that's wrong. This is really rough. Okay. Okay, just outside his beat. The rules. Read them again. I'm gonna repress this. I know I've already pressed it. This is my first guess. This is really remote, though. It's like very unlikely this is true. It's like this. You actually present the rows on you would have seen something if it... Yeah, the music didn't stop, which is suggesting that I just totally messed up. Okay, now we know it's not that. We've ruled it out. Pressed this, right?
Hold it!
I already pressed that. Wait. Wait a second. Is this not Rolly Beat? Wait, what? So the new statement that was added was this one. Well, I'm gonna end this one here, and then see if I can figure this out. Next, I'm gonna like end in this limbo here because I'm a little stuck.